That's his big thing this year.
Okay, we were talking about the music on the Partridge Family.
Well, as I said, we had a new song every week, and I would go in the studio with David and do the recording, and then all of the rest of the people would just mouth the words, on when we were on the set shooting it, and make believe they played the instruments and everything else, as I did. I mean, I don't play the piano, so that's as I did. The only person who did everything was David. David played the guitar, and and he played in the sessions, and he was the lead singer. And I remember when we were at our peak doing the show, there were offers to play Las Vegas. They'd say, "Listen, why can't the Partridge Family play Las Vegas or play Lake Tahoe or play?" And I kept saying, "You don't understand. There is no Partridge Family. That's it. There's no Partridge Family." And of course, nobody really realized that. And then finally, they came to know that that was the way it worked. But
was it sort of a guarded secret?
Yeah, they wanted to sort of keep it away from the public for a while, as long as they could. But then it could, of course, came out because we were asked to perform places and we couldn't do it really. So.
When you first signed on, did you know that there would be albums and things like that involved?
No, none of us knew that it was going to be to that degree. I mean, we knew we were going to do a song each week, but we had no idea. That's what I'm talking about. David, they didn't realize that David would come out of this, the way he did. I mean, that he would suddenly emerge as the teen idol of America. And that started then, of course, then we started releasing the albums. We started releasing the songs, and it was 5 gold albums and 5-6 gold singles and everything else. So nobody knew that. Nobody realized it. The executive producers as well. I mean, they were in shock. So it was a big deal.
I can talk a little bit about the cast, starting with Dave Madden.
Yeah, Dave was great. I mean, as I said, he had a wonderful feeling about working with Danny, which really worked so well. When I see the episodes now, that to me is where the humor was, and he was perfect for the part, just great. Everybody thought there was going to be a romance between Dave Madden and his character and my character. And of course, that was never even thought about. No, he was the manager, so that was it. But he was great.
And the character of Reuben Kincaid?
Yeah, well, that's, he was perfect. I mean, he was right on, the frustrated manager, which is how it started out. And of course, frustrated with Danny in particular, who wanted to take over and be the manager of the group himself, at his age. So that's where, as I said, the humor was there, so it was great.
And Danny Bonaduce?
Well, Danny was, a kid, best child actor I ever worked with, although I have to say a lot for Ronnie Howard, though. But he, humor-wise, he was incredible. He was like a little stand-up comic, at that age. And he's 7 or something, 8, I think. And he was remarkable. And of course, he was a kid, and he was a real kid. Mischief, jokes, any and everything, And he was not having a great home life at the time, I think his parents were having problems, and his father was hard on him, so he was happy to work on the set with his second family, so. And he tells a story about me saying he did something wrong, and I said, "Danny, go to your room," He said there wasn't any room. It was an upstairs flat, upstairs. He tells that story about me.
Susan Day?
She was a beautiful young model from New York, and had really not acted before, which is interesting. She had just been modeling, and she was so gorgeous to look at, and amazingly enough, became a wonderful actress during the show. I mean, she was right on once again to play that role, and she and David got along. She had a big crush on David for a while, and that came out later on in the, after a couple of years. But she and also she was fighting anorexia at the time, which was nobody knew. But I remember one particular time she never would eat lunch. She would just have a few carrots or a stalk of celery or something like that. And we knew very little about anorexia, but some of the young models, as we all know now, they start out modeling. That's the first thing that happens. And I remember her hands were all yellow. Her palms of her hands were yellow. And I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Well, it's all those carrots that I eat." And it's because she wasn't eating anything else, really, And that was how it was emerging. And but she, it never was a problem for her in the show or anything. But she talked about it much later on, how she had to fight it all the time.
And the character, Laurie, that you played?
Yeah, Laurie. Yeah, it was great.
What was the relationship between Laurie and Shirley Partridge?
It was good. We had a good. She would ask my advice about things all the time, and she played my daughter, of course, and she was my helpmate in the show. I mean, she was the other young woman, and she would be a help on and off the stage. So she was great. We had a very good relationship in the show.
Suzanne Crowe?
She was just adorable little girl, and she had done commercials prior to that, but I don't think had done a lot of acting either. I mean, that was kind of a new thing for her, and but she was so charming, and so delightful. We're by the way, we stayed very good friends. She has 2 beautiful daughters, and they come and visit me, every now and then. And her husband's a lovely guy; he's a lawyer, and so I see them a lot.
Jeremy Gelbach.
Well, he was our first, as you know. What's the character's name? Chris, yes, Chris, for our first Chris, and he was really good, in the pilot, but he was troublesome, and we were all, as I said, we all worked so well as a team, and he was the only one that kind of was the outsider. I mean, he was a little boy, and he hadn't done all that much, and his parents were kind of stage parents in a way. They were very eager to have him be number one and do this and do that, and it didn't work with our show. It just didn't. And the executive, producer saw it immediately and said, "This is not going to work. We got to." I remember it was him and the dog that after the pilot they thought we have to make a change, and I don't think he was happy. It wasn't anything against him. I know him now too, and I see him every now and then, and he's a great guy. But he was not happy doing it, is what really happened. And his parents wanted him to do it, and I don't think he was happy. So we replaced him, And, so it's always so funny when there's a character replaced. And they've done it in a lot of television shows, husbands and children, and, But people just go right on like it never happened.
He was replaced by Brian Forster.
Yes.
Talk about working with him.
I love Brian. I remember saying to him, when I first met him, he had truly an angel face. I never saw a face like that. It was just the face of an angel. And now, I see him now. We meet up every now and then, have little reunions with Suzanne and him. He lives up in up north, and he says that all the time. He said, "I'll never forget the first thing you said to me, Shirley. You said, 'Oh, you have an angel face.'" So yeah, he's great.
And 2 very interesting actors played your parents on the show.
Yes, right. Ray Bolger and Rosemary DeCamp. Yes, that was exciting. Yeah. Well, I was excited to work with both of them. I mean, I was fan, so. And of course, Ray was, really, I mean, he was kind of a gruff sort of, at that time in his life, a curmudgeon, I think is the word they use. He was a curmudgeon. And he was that, everything had to be done his way. But it was great. He was wonderful. And Rosemary DeCamp was great. I remember talking to her a lot about all the roles that she'd played, and I was very interested in her as a movie actress.
And there was an audition of Ricky Siegel.
Yes. He was in, I think, 1 or 2 shows that we did. And he was charming, talented little guy, But again, I don't think they felt that he could work his way into the company. They were thinking of maybe adding him, as sort of the neighbor, and he'd be in every show. But he was very young, and musically he was fine. But I don't think they felt he was a good enough actor to sort of join all of us.
I guess another sort of character is the bus.
Yes, of course, the bus, the painted bus. Everybody asked me about that. Where is it? how can I get one, and all of that. I've seen them everywhere, by the way. Where the original one is, I'm still not sure. I've had a lot of stories, but I remember I was in Mason City, Iowa, at a Music Man sort of convention. I was there and I was performing for them. This was rather recently, and they were showing the film. It was a film festival, I guess, and a bus pulled up, and they said, "That's the Partridge bus." I said, "Where did that come from?" And this guy got a bus and just did it, and he owned it and he lived there. And this bus was rolling around all Mason City, Iowa. So there's one down in San Diego, and
Did you actually drive the bus on?
Oh yeah, I did, and it was not easy because I had grown up on the on the automatic shift. I didn't know how to drive a stick shift, and this was a stick in the floor. This was the shift in the floor. So I had to learn that, and I remember at the end of the show time, at the closing night party, they presented me, all these Teamsters presented me with an award. I was the Teamster of the Year because I learned to drive the bus.
Do you have a favorite episode of the series?
I have a few. I love the one about the skunk because I'm such an animal person, where the dog was hit by the skunk, and we used tomato juice to bathe the dog in, and the skunk got in the bus, and we had to get him out of the bus.
That's called But the Memory Lingers On.
Yes, right. I forget the names of them. And, of course, the location ones we did I loved. I mean, we went to that big amusement park in St. Louis, Flags, what is it?
Six Flags?
Seven Flags or?
Six Flags.
Six Flags. Six Flags, yes. And we did an episode there, and it was great fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and of course we had an audience, around us every minute. But that was a fun episode to do. And the Christmas episode with Dean Jagger, as I mentioned earlier, I loved that because we all sang "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" in the show, and it was really fun to do.
Do you have a least favorite episode?
I'm trying to think, which is the least. I can't think of one. I mean, I kind of enjoyed all of them basically. I mean, I like the ones, the ones more where we had a little location, sitting inside the house every day and doing the schoolwork and all of that didn't appeal to me as much. I liked it where we had something going on and had wonderful guest stars. I loved that too. So.
The show also was known for its merchandising.
Oh yes, we had a lot of that. We had paper dolls. We had the bus, we had a game, Partridge Family game, we had the lunchbox, which is now in the Smithsonian Institute, I went down, as a matter of fact, to do the sort of honors to present the lunchbox to the Smithsonian. And they have, I think, 12 lunchboxes of that period now on display. So it's kind of fun.
From your role as Shirley Partridge, you became known as the perfect mom. How do you react to that?
Well, it's not quite right. I mean, I was the perfect mom. It's once again the other thing I pointed out that this is a television show. I mean, this is not real life, and there was a lot of Shirley Partridge. Yes, that was me in real life, but there was a lot that wasn't. I mean, a lot of the character. It was just everything was just too well defined, and life isn't that way. And that's why a lot of kids, said, "Oh, I grew up with you, and I wanted my mom to be just like you, and I wanted to come and live with you, and I wanted to be in the band." I mean, it did create a lot of that, and that's nice. But, I just always felt sorry for these kids because obviously something was really lacking in their life,
Did you find yourself compared to other TV moms?
Not quite at that time. Yeah, Florence Henderson, the Brady Bunch. I mean, she was the only one because we were really right on top of each other Friday night, So, yeah, we had that comparison. And still do. I have people call me Florence, and she has people call her Shirley. So, I mean, we had that, but she was the only one, really.
Why did the show go off the air after 4 seasons?
Well, it was the beginning, what I believe, it was the beginning of a new kind of television. And they had the show with, here I am with names again, Archie Bunker.
All in the Family.
Right, All in the Family. And we were going to be opposite All in the Family. And as you and I both know, that was a very different kind of family. I mean, that was the beginning of reality television. And you know, that was the whole kind of beginning in a lot of areas. And they just felt that we couldn't compete, you know, that our show was out of style and that we wouldn't be able to compete with a show like Archie Bunker or All in the Family. And so they just decided we better go while the going's good, is what I felt. And also the other thing, which I keep forgetting to mention, is that I think David, at this point in time, had it on the show. I think David wanted to go out and do his own thing. You know, he was now a big, big teen idol. He wanted to go out and do more concerts. He wanted to do different kind of music than just the Partridge Family kind of music. And I think he, you know, they made the decision with those two things in mind, that David was really, you know, not happy anymore. So.
What kind of fan mail did you get on the show?
What kind of what?
Fan
Fan mail? Oh, all kinds from all over, you know. Again, kids, you know, saying they wanted to come be in the band, and, you know, some from mothers saying that they loved the show and watched it with their kids. And so it was a lot of fan mail. David got most, you know, from fans, girl fans and teen fans, you know, so.
The show also, you had a Thanksgiving reunion with the Partridge Family and My Three Sons a few years later.
Yes, that was fun to do, yeah. We had a good time. It was Fred McMurray, I believe, was still, yeah, he was in it then too. Yeah, that was fun. It was fun to meet him and work with him and, you know, do that show.
And then recently, VH1 did In Search of Partridge Family.
Oh, gosh, that was interesting. Danny and David went all over the country, you know, and Danny in particular, and they narrowed it down. They would choose contestants from all the major cities. I mean, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. And Danny went and was in every city. Now, what I would do was come in at the end, and it was only in 2 cities, Los Angeles and New York, and see the winners that they had picked, you know. And then they would pick like 7, I think they picked 7 winners for each category. And that's when we decided we were going to do the VH1 shows and pick a new Partridge Family, you know, from these and do the shows. And, you know, once again, I wasn't terribly excited because I don't like reality television all that much. And I thought, you know, I'm not sure I want to do this. But it wasn't just reality television. It was, in actuality, you know, like what do you call it? Like the amateur shows, you know, where they get up and do their thing. And so I thought this would be good for young people to try their wings. And so that's really what happened. So I think we did 5 or 6 shows. And at the end of the 6th show, I was on every one of them with Danny and David. And we would pick a winner in each show. And then at the end, we had the new Partridge Family, you know, from each category. And they did a pilot, but I think it's as far as it went. So,
why do you think the Partridge Family has sustained this interest for all of these years?
Well, I think, number one, they don't make television shows like that anymore. And I think that the public itself is hungry for that kind of television. You know, that's why TV Land does well when they show the shows again, like the Brady Bunch and Partridge and all the wonderful old shows of the 70s, because there's not much like that to watch for a family on television today. You know, the major channels just don't have it. And so for anybody that wants to sit down of an evening or an afternoon and watch with the whole family, the kids included, they love that. And I think that's why they've maintained, you know, the shows have been, you know, are still being shown, because people want it.
Let's move on to some of the other TV movies that you've done over the years, starting with The Girls of Huntington House.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that one. Sissy Spacek, her first film, first job, to my knowledge. And she was wonderful. I played this matron in this girls' school. And with all the problems that go with it, you know, and it was a wonderful script, wonderful role for me, once again. The movies that I've done, several of the television movies to me are some of my favorites, you know, of all the films that I've done, the television movies. Because once again, they gave me a chance to do different kinds of roles. You know, I wasn't typecast in a certain category, as I had been for so long in films, you know, so, and in television, I could play different kinds of parts, and that was the fun thing for me.
How do you normally prepare for a part?
Well, you know, I read the script and try to get to know who the character is, and basically just think of myself as that character, you know. I'll use makeup or clothes or whatever it takes, you know, to try to enhance it. But it's me being the character, you know, becoming the character. And yet I'm not a method actor. It's not. I wasn't raised with the actor studio or anything like that. It's more just, you know, it's called, as Laurence Olivier said, it's called acting.
Another movie you did was The Family Nobody Wanted.
Yes, a lovely film as well. Yeah, I did that up in Canada, and it was Len Cariou was my co-star in that, and it was basically I believe it was a true story or based on a true story that we did about this family, adoptive children and so forth, and you know, again it was a marvelous story, you know, storyline. And Len was great to work with. You know, Len was a Broadway actor and had done, I believe by that time, had done Sweeney Todd on Broadway and Little Night Music, and you know, he was a singer as well, so we got along very well. He was great to work with.
The Lives of Jenny Dolan.
Yeah, that was a pilot. And meant to go into a television series, and of course never did. But it was a very good pilot. Ross Hunter, the famous movie producer, was our producer on that. And so I was dressed, you know, to the nines. I mean, he made sure I was very glamorous and had beautiful clothes and beautiful hairstyles and all of that. But the character just wasn't real enough, you know, for the time. And I was disappointed because it was fun for me to play once again.
Now, did you really want to go back into a series?
Yeah, I wanted to at that point. Sure, I wanted to. And a dramatic series would have been wonderful for me, you know. I would have once again been able to hone my art, you know, and try to do a little more work in the dramatic field.
Okay. You were also working, you were doing variety specials still at that point too, right? You worked with Bob Hope and...
Oh yeah, I never stopped doing those. I did Bob Hope's Christmas show almost every year, you know, as well as I said, Andy Williams' Christmas show almost every year. I mean, and the Smothers Brothers, I did their show, you know, several times. Yeah, every year I was doing variety, you know.
How was it working with Bob Hope?
Great. He was great. He was just great. We became good friends, too. I remember one of the last ones I did was with Hope and Crosby. Crosby was on the show, Bing Crosby. And we had the wonderful Mexican comedian who died young, whose son is an actor now. Oh, darn. Son is...
Freddie Prinze?
Yes, thank you. Your memory's better than mine. Freddie Prinze was on the show, and he was just delightful. And he was doing comedy, and of course he was scared to death working with Bob Hope. I mean, you know, comedian. And I'll never forget it. We finished doing the show, and we got in the car to come back to the hotel. And Bob, you know, like every comedian, had the insecurity of the fact that maybe the jokes didn't work. One or two jokes didn't work for him, you know. And he turned to Freddie Prinze and he said, you know, the one about the so-and-so, I mean, that didn't work, did it? I mean, tell me, I mean, no, that went down the drain. And Freddie Prinze was so taken with the fact that Bob Hope asked him if the joke worked, you know, and he was thrilled. He was great. Bob Hope was great to me. I mean, he every time he had a show, I mean, I was asked to do it. Matter of fact, he quoted the quote that I use when I do my concerts now. He called me the First Lady of American Song. And that's the quote that I use when I'm introduced when I do my concerts across the country.
In 1979, you actually went back to series with Shirley.
With Shirley, yes. A wonderful show. I loved that show. That was a show that should have happened. You know, Jenny Dolan was one thing, but the Shirley show should have happened. It had everything. I mean, it was, again, a widow who with children, and you know, it was a beautiful story, beautiful pilot, really beautiful pilot. Warm, good people. We had some wonderful actors in it. I'll never think of people's names now, but just wonderful group of people, real pros, you know. And it was a very warm, loving story. And we did the pilot, and I remember after the pilot, we were signed on to do, what, 4 or 6 shows or whatever it was. And we had a break between the pilot and doing the first show. And all of a sudden, I came back. I remember I went on a little holiday someplace. I came back, and everybody connected with the show was gone. The executive producer, the director, the writers, everybody was gone. A man by the name of Silverman came in as the executive producer, and he'd just done a show called 8 is Enough with, I believe, Dick Van Patten. And it was a real out-and-out comedy with a laugh track. Now, the Shirley Show was not that. It had humor, but it was not that kind of comedy.
What was the premise of the show?
It wasn't. It was just a family. It was a family with family problems. You know, a housekeeper, the woman is the widow, the children that had problems of their own, you know, the dog living in it, had to move to a new town, the neighbors. It was a family show. It was, you know, it was, and very well written, beautifully written, with humor, with a lot of fun, a lot of humorous things, but not ha-ha comedy, not drop your pants comedy by a long shot. And Fred Silverman was the producer, came in, and I didn't understand it at all. I didn't get it. I said, we had a hit pilot. We were signed to do 4 shows or something, 5 or 6 shows. And he said, no, we're changing it. We're putting in a laugh track, and we're adding all new writers, and we want all laughs. They wanted to change the plot line. They wanted to change who you are. Well, for the first time in my life, you know, in movies or television, I had a nervous breakdown. I mean, I cornered Mr. Silverman. My husband, Marty Ingalls, now will never forget that night, because it's not me. It's not me at all. But I truly felt he was wrong, and I felt that he was throwing a wonderful show away, and that's really what I felt. And I cornered him at a dinner we went to, and I said, you know, I hope you understand that this is not what the show is. And I said, you know, we have a hit show, and you're throwing it out the window. This is what it's going to be. Of course, he disagreed with me. The show never went anywhere. It was absolutely neither here nor there. It had warmth and wonderful family feeling, wonderful show, wonderful writers, and it was down the drain. So I was really upset about that. And, you know, normally I don't say all that much. I mean, I let the people that are going to handle it. But I got involved this time, so.
Stop there to change the tape.
Okay.